In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use roto nodes to isolate our image. We'll also learn what to look for when deciding to split the image apart. Okay, so I'm just starting off here in your project files. I'm in 02_begin, and I want to go ahead and drop in the read node that we're going to be using to create this project. So go ahead and get in your project files and go into your reference files folder, and I'm just going to start with this outdoor scene that is the PSD file. We're going to just be looking at this JPEG as a guide, but you don't need to bring it into Nuke. So just go ahead and bring in that PSD. And then let's go ahead and hook that up to our viewer node. Okay, so you can see that we have a pretty large image here. It's a little bit bigger than 1280 by 720. And we have just quite a few details in this image as well. So I want to start by thinking about where we can break this image up to create the image you saw in your last lesson, where our image has all of this depth. And as you can see, this is just a PSD file. It's flattened. There's no layers in here at all. So we're going to be able to go from this very still image to an image that has full 3D depth capability with the camera to zoom through. Now it is going to feel like it's maybe a little bit 2.5D as far as the kind of planar feeling that some of these pieces get whenever you cut them out. But the first thing that we need to do before we start anything else is to set up our project settings. So let's just come over here and hover over our properties bin, and we'll hit the S key to bring up those project settings. Now I'm happy with the frame rate being 1 to 100. I'm happy with the FPS being 24, but I do want to change from this full size format. So if we drop this down, you'll notice that we're not able to just use that default of 1813 by 1020 because I want to do 1280 by 720. So we're going to have to create a new format for that. So just come down here and hit new. And then let's just call this 1280 by 720. And then we'll go ahead and type in those numbers as well. I'm just hitting tab to move from box to box. Okay. We'll go ahead and say okay to that. And now we have the proper project settings. So the way that we're going to be setting this project up is simply by using this single read node to get all of the different layers from. So I'm going to be using a roto node to isolate the different parts of the image that we want. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up that JPEG you have in your reference files, and we'll just take a look at this here. So I've kind of just gone in and lightly colored over the different areas that I feel like are good areas to split this image. So we've got a green area for our sky, purple for the mountains, blue for this kind of middle ground area where the little house, which is actually the focal point, where that goes, yellow for this area here that's a little bit closer to us, and then we've got pink for the water. And I think also I'm going to want to split up this dock. I think the dock would be nice on its own layer as well. So that's kind of the main 5 areas we're going to be working with here. So actually it's going to be 6 if you include the dock. So I'm going to just minimize that image, and let's go ahead and get started by adding a rotoscope to the sky. So with just this read node selected, let's come up here to our image nodes and choose roto. And then we'll just kind of zoom in over here, and I just am going to start along this edge here. And I really prefer, whenever I'm using the roto node, to use Bezier. So I'll just go ahead and start here. Now what I like to do is just to kind of get a pretty rough outline and scatter a decent amount of points along the whole image. So I'm just left clicking to drop those points in, and then using my middle mouse button to kind of just pan along the line here. Now, because I'm only working on the sky, it's honestly not that important that I get this close to the trees because of what I'm going to be doing later on with the Roto paint node. So for this particular image, anything that's basically going to go below that sky doesn't need to be a perfect line all along those trees, because I'm going to actually come in here and paint below the sky in a later lesson to just kind of fill that out, because whenever you work on a project like this, you probably, if you've ever done one before, know that those 3D layers can start to get some gaps in between them. So it's necessary for you to go in and just kind of paint in the image that it's missing. So I'm going to come over here to the other side and we'll just drop in that last point. Okay, so this looks pretty good, and then you can just come in here and clean this up if you got a little too close along the edge. But basically, that's going to work out really nicely for the rotoscope that I have for my sky. So now I basically am ready for this to be cut out of the background. I don't really want to see the rest of this image anymore. So to get that effect, I'm going to come over here to pre-multiply, and we'll go to that drop down and choose RGBA. And that's just going to cut out everything around that Bezier roto shape that we've created. And if I clear my properties bin, you can kind of get a better idea of how much sky we actually have to work with, which honestly is not a lot of pixels. In the whole of this image, there's really not a lot of sky. So we're going to need more than this to work with. So in our next lesson, we're going to learn how to use the Roto paint nodes to fill in those gaps. Now, there's definitely other layers that we're going to be using besides just this one layer that we've created here. So we want to have those other pieces isolated with the Roto nodes as well. So this is just one of the many pieces that's going to go into the image. So let's go ahead and create a few more of those. I'm just going to pull this Roto node off to the side, select the background again, and we'll drop in a second Roto node. And you want to make sure that this background pipe is piping into your read node on all of the Roto nodes that you create. So let's go ahead and look at this second one here. And it looks like this mountain would be a great one for us to tackle next. So I'm just going to go back in. You see I have Roto 2. We'll just grab that Bezier, and I'm just going to quickly go along this edge here. But you definitely are going to want to go in and refine this, add lots more points later on. But I'm just wanting to get the basic shape here, and being zoomed out is definitely helpful in getting that. And you can see kind of this line here where it really starts to get caught by the light. That's a great stopping point for this mask. Okay, so that's kind of just a rough outline of the shape. And then we can come in here and you can get as granular as you want. I actually like for it to be pretty, really have a pretty tight feeling to it around these different pieces. So to get a few more points in here, let's come over here to our Add Points tool. And I'm just going to click a few times along this area here. And then let's go ahead and just start putting those in place. So we'll grab our Select All tool and just kind of start putting those in place and manipulating their handles to just get a little bit of a finer contour along this ridge line here on our mountain. And you may have to still add multiple points. It just depends on how close you want to get to the outline. But you can see how I've got just a little bit more detail here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up over the whole mountain and finish that off in between lessons. I'm also going to add in some more Roto nodes for the rest of these pieces. So we'll have one for this middle area here, one for this closer foreground area there, one for the bridge, and one for the water. And then I'll just continue going in to that pre-multiply drop down and choosing RGBA to make that background transparent. So In this lesson, we learned how we can use Roto nodes to isolate the different parts of our image that we want to have on different planes in 3D space. In the next lesson, we're going to learn how to take these shapes further with the Roto paint node to add on to any areas that might not be long enough or large enough with the images once they're pushed into 3D space. So stick around and we're going to learn how to use those Roto paint nodes in the next lesson.